Well, good morning and welcome everyone to Administrator Issues and Updates on October 7th, 2025. Gary Schmidt, would you please call the roll for us?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Commissioner Schrader and Commissioner West are out of the office at two separate functions today. Roll call. There is quorum present. Roll call. Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Commissioner Helm.
Here.
Chair Roberts.
Here. All right, Gary, would you introduce our first item tonight?
Yes, thank you, Chair. First is, again, something that's not a renewal or an agreement. That's for the consent agenda. We bring it for you first at issues to see if you have any questions or concerns before it does go to the consent agenda. And in this case, the request is for a jail camera system contract update. Captain Jennifer Freeman of the Sheriff's Office will give a quick update on what this is. The actual language from the staff report is approval of a personal services contract with LRS Architects for jail camera and electronic systems update. Contract value is $415,930 for 2 years. Funding is through budgeted county general funds. And I'll clarify, these are not from the Sheriff's Office general funds, but the County Finance Capital Construction Fund general funds, where any sort of infrastructure asset updates are funded through that account. It was in that account. That was budgeted. I think we could have been a little bit clearer on the staff report, but I want to verbally say that. This is budgeted general funds, but it's not Sheriff's Office. It's from the Finance Capital Construction Fund. We can answer your questions if you can. Captain Freeman, please come forward to give a quick update on why this is going forward, what this project is.
You have a question first?
It's for Gary.
Did she present first, or do you want to ask me first?
I want to ask this question first.
Please have a seat, Captain, and go ahead, Commissioner.
So Gary, was this anticipated when the budget was passed, this expense?
Yes.
It was anticipated,
Yes.
so therefore it's from that account. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Captain
ahead,
Freeman,
Captain.
go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Roberts and Commissioners. My name is Jennifer Freeman, and I serve as the jail commander for the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. The Clackamas County Jail first opened in 1959. Since that time, the jail has been updated incrementally to ensure the safety of deputies, adults in custody, and the community. Key upgrades have included installation of the first modern control system in 2011, which is still in use today. Camera installations in housing units in EF and G was during the 80s, an addition of cameras in the OCIC during the 1990s, booking and medical in 2000s, and expanded coverage, adding 64 cameras in 2014. The installation of 24 digital night vision catwalk cameras were in 2016. While some cameras have been replaced, much of the system has exceeded its useful life and still relies on outdated analog technology. Equipment failures are very common, and repairs often require sourcing obsolete parts from secondary markets such as eBay or Amazon. Staff depend on stockpiling old components, which is a practice that is no longer sustainable. This creates real safety concerns. The jail's control room operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Deputies are regularly required to make critical decisions with poor video and audio quality. For example, staff have reported that when a vehicle approaches a Sallyport gate, the image quality is so degraded that it is very difficult to determine if that vehicle is law enforcement or not. Today, we are requesting your approval to enter in a contract with LRS Architects Incorporated for the design and engineering of a new modern control video and intercom system. For this first phase, Facilities Capital Projects is the budgeted funds from the general fund. The first phase covers design work, which will ensure the continued safety of deputies, adults in custody, and the broader community.
All right. Questions? I see both have questions. I'll start with you, Commissioner Helm.
It just fascinates me to hear the word analog used anymore. That we are that far behind on this. I think this is much needed, and I think everyone will be safer. And the quality of the newer cameras are just incredible. So I'm in support of this. You did mention phase one. Can you clarify that a little bit when you say it's for design, but it's also for the cameras, or will there be another additional ask?
There'll be another additional ask to actually move forward with the cameras. This is for the design of them.
Design only. Okay.
Commissioner, are you done? I don't want to cut you off.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Salas.
So building, thank you, Commissioner Helm. Just building on that, so Gary, what's baked in the anticipated expense for the entire project?
What's the total cost of this project, Captain, do you know?
I believe they were just discussing it back there. It was $2 million.
$2 million total? So we only budget year by year on the 420 capital fund, so I guess you're making the commitment now that we would put this in the budget for next fiscal year. It's not yet, no. Look, I don't want to embarrass anyone today, but I'm disappointed again. We have a miscommunication between the Sheriff's Office Finance and my county finance department, and I'm disappointed, and I don't know what to say. Captain Freeman has nothing to do with this. My staff's not prepared to talk about it, but I don't know what to tell you, Commissioners.
Yeah, well, and I know this is no association with you whatsoever, so just don't, no, it's not, it's more towards what Gary's speaking to. So the other thing I was going to ask for, which is really, what is the cost benefit? You know, what is the maintenance and the loss, so to speak? And what would be the benefit in the end? Is this going to be something that's lower cost to maintain? And so seeing some kind of financial analysis would be beneficial. But we're only seeing part of the picture. And Gary, if you didn't have $2.5 million baked into this, or $2 million baked into this, then that concerns me because we're already in the red. So at the same token I totally concerned about hearing about, number one, this challenge, and number two, that we're in the using analog cameras. So I don't know if there's any other options that are maybe lower cost, but $2 or $2.5 million. If that's not factored in, then I got concerned that this might be a stranded investment.
If I could have Patrick Williams come up and speak to it.
Yeah, go ahead.
And Elizabeth Comfort will come up as well. Let's do it, or not.
Morning, Chair. Morning, Commissioners Helm and Savas.
Elizabeth.
Could you introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, I'm Patrick Williams. I'm the Finance and Business Services Manager for the Office of the Sheriff.
All right, thank you. So I think maybe the conversation should start out as, has there been communication kind of going back with finance on this big project, both phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3?
Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director with the county. And yes, the Finance Department Facilities Division under the Finance Department has worked very closely with the jail staff, with Jennifer and a couple other folks. Under Sheriff Eby was there too. And we looked at this project, the need for the jail electronic system that we coined the JESS system. Needed to be replaced, and the Sheriff's Office budget could not support it. So what we've done, I mentioned this a little bit last week at our Budget Committee meeting, that we have identified in the overall county assets budget, we've identified dollars specifically to go to some projects that needed to be done at the Sheriff's Office assets. One is the jail system. And so we have those dollars budgeted. We budgeted last year $2 million. We did not spend all of that. I think only about $475,000. And then so we carried over. We committed those dollars to these projects that we've agreed on. Facilities is overseeing the vetting of these projects and working with Jason, who is their project manager for these. And we feel supportive and confident in these projects that need to be done. We have taken these dollars and set them aside for the Sheriff's Office projects. So we have a carryover amount, and then we've added new dollars in this current budget. So you have approved in the 25-26 budget approximately $2 million to spend on the jail project, and then there are other projects identified for a total of, I think, $3,200,000 in this current year. Now, most likely, all those projects will not be completed because it takes a long time to get through the contracting and getting prep work for each of the projects. But they are budgeted in this year's dollars, and Finance Facilities is working with the Sheriff's Office staff.
How much for this year, Elizabeth?
I think it's $3,200,000 in
For
total.
the entire county or for this single project?
Well, for this project, $2 million.
For this single project?
Right, and $3.2 million for the Sheriff's Office. That is in addition to what, I think, the county itself has 1.7, because we weren't able to, we didn't have enough general fund to go around to all of them, so we really have pared down the other county asset capital projects, because there are some definitely desperate needed projects to be done in asset upgrades and replacements with the Sheriff's Office.
Well, if I might just comment on that jail. which is 66 years old. And just to let folks really know how old that building is, they have mixers in the kitchen that came out of World War II battleships. They have trays that were used in battleships in World War II. I mean, it is an old building. I know you've had a lot of challenges with plumbing in the floor, with pipes, and just a number of issues. And the one thing I just would like you to maybe talk a little bit about the safety and security to enhance. And Commissioner Helm did talk about the quality of cameras has improved dramatically, which also I think provides clarity on if there's a use of force or other things that you can really see what's going on. And also if there's any blind spots in that jail that could perhaps be covered with new cameras and installation that also protects the county from liability, because I also see it as a huge risk management issue of making sure that we've got adequate recording systems to capture what people are doing in the jail. So maybe you could just talk about what you envision as some of the changes that will provide better security within the facility.
You spoke to it very well. It is a very old facility, and the cameras have degraded, and so in that process, it's very hard to make out who the people are. So if you're doing like an investigation or something like that, it's become very hard. Everything has kind of become blurry, and they're not replaceable to get them to the level to where we can see some of those things. And then also the control room opens all the doors to the facility to get inside, and so sometimes there's failures with that. We need to be able to get inside the cell blocks quickly for emergencies.
Commissioner Helm has
So,
a comment.
to be clear, this is not going to put us in the red. These funds are available. They've been set aside. 2 million of 3.2 million have been set aside for this, both in carryover and in budgeted funds. Correct? Okay. And then I will say, too, I have switched over from an analog system to a new one. And when I was trying to fix the analog system, the parts, you have to go to eBay, and people jack the prices up so much because they know you want those parts so bad to replace what you have existing, that it becomes not just cumbersome, it becomes like impossible to try to fix your current system. So been there, done that. I look forward to a new system where you guys can actually see what's going on. So thank you for that clarification, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Commissioner Savis.
I'm not as clear as Commissioner Helm right now, because I think I heard both of you, Elizabeth and Gary, say that there was 3.2 million for capital projects, but not for the sheriff's office, but not for this specific project. Yes. Okay, so what, is it specifically for this project? It was not clear to me.
Sorry, and I actually pulled up my spreadsheet. So yes, we have a capital budget for this fiscal year for the sheriff's office assets of $3,230,255. Of that, $2 million is for Phase 1 of Phase 2 for the jail electronic system.
Okay, so is the 2 million is a 415,000 in addition to the 2 million, or is it part of the $2 million cost?
It is part of the 2 million. So
Okay.
there are, in Phase 1 for the jail electronic system, there are several components to that. And so this is the first contract, or is our second contract? I think this is our first contract for the jail electronic system, because last year what we did was the jail floor, the kitchen floor, and then this year we're starting on the electronic system.
Okay. I'm sure that camera systems aren't 66 years old. No one's saying that, right? But at the same token, I think that as Commissioner Helm just identified, is really wondering if the value of our system as components are that high. Maybe we can recoup some of those dollars on the disposition of the components of the analog system once it's complete.
You mean put them on eBay?
Yeah, there you go. So something like that. I mean, if they're of value and in high demand, I think we're gonna have to pinch pennies as long as I'm here. And beyond. I think it's obvious that we're gonna have to be frugal through and through, and I hope that this is competitive. And so I don't know if anyone can answer this question, but is this gonna be hardwired, or is this gonna be
Cat 6, yeah.
not Bluetooth, but
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi. Is it gonna be, are these Wi-Fi cameras? Because I can tell you right now, I will not I will not invest in another Wi-Fi system at all.
It says it's Cat 6.
So it is, okay. So it is hardwired?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the only comment, I'll come back to that. I know that, I don't think they had cameras in
That's
66
right.
years ago.
That's my point.
But I think this is a broader question that I think the board needs to have is, I consider this putting more money into a rundown house that is better off tearing it down. And we've been doing that for years. The floor, I mean, the list goes on and on about that challenges that building has. And it also, unfortunately, is not really the state of the art that provides safety and security for both staff and inmates. The kitchen is incredibly limited. You can't even expand it. And so I think that's, Gary, where we do have the conversation, which I think we talked about in our strategic plan.
It's on your strategic plan.
Yeah.
Design plans for the new jail, yes.
So I guess our commitment is to really look at, can we move forward with a new jail? Because I honestly hate to see the county continue to have to put money in this building. I support doing this because it's critical for the safety and security of the facility. But I also think the bigger conversation is when is enough in that old building? And to start looking at a new project. So Commissioner Savas had a comment. And
Yeah, more of a question for actually you, Chair. And I guess, Mike, I don't dispute that the jail is a high priority, especially when it comes to cameras and, Sally ports and all those areas where, it's important. So I'm not doubting or questioning the importance of this. But it does make me think to the things that you just mentioned, other facilities that the county owns, including the sheriff's office, that, I know that, for example, with some of the Park District assets, last few years I've looked at, because of the financial condition they're in, how do we cut our costs, right, and burden of pouring money into old buildings as opposed to considering liquidating. We liquidated 2 buildings at NCPRD for that very reason. Ultimately, that's what happened. But that was the driver. So the Wichita Center for me, was one of the primary drivers is we can't be pouring money into these buildings. So I know the sheriff's office, and maybe we talk about that at a greater level, has a lot of properties, right? And maybe we ought to look and see what we can liquidate to help fund future operations as well as a future courthouse. But those are exposures, not just from a security standpoint, but from a maintenance and health standpoint. So I think we need to take maybe stock, and not just the sheriff's facilities, but all of them in the county. We've done that before. I know that previous colleagues of mine and myself joined in and say, hey, facilities, have a conversation with facilities. I think we need a refresher on that. And so that's all I'm advocating for right now.
yeah. And I think that, take me back since I've been around so long, was not this board, nobody here, but came before the board at that particular time. At the same time this building was built, there was a commitment to build a jail at the very same time. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. Then that building was built, and the courthouse was built. And so my hope is that the critical services that are provided in the jail really have to have the adequate type of facility and for the protection of everybody. And so I think we've been, over the years, doing good patchwork the best we can, and I think it's definitely worth even what I consider is even trying to phase it, which I think is sometimes a good route to go. So go ahead. You had a comment.
One other thought. I'm just going to use the NCPRD example again. I think it's responsible. I think any household uses the same thing. If we want something, we just kind of pack away the dollars or put away money to make it happen, right? So one of the policies the NCPRD adopted, if we're going to sell something, we're going to put it away in a fund for other future acquisitions or other projects, right, specifically. So I suggest maybe we look at it from that standpoint, is if we were to liquidate something, put it away for a large project. Certainly the jail is a big priority. The board's agreed to that. So therefore, we need to start packing away those dollars. So maybe we ought to take that kind of an approach, similar to NCPRD, and save those for that large project.
I got a good response for you on that one. We're gonna have a little debate up here. But that was my philosophy a long time ago as sheriff is, why don't we create a savings account for a new jail? And honestly, I got that to $10 million. And it came a point in time where the county had to make some priorities, and they said, we're gonna take that. So
What year was that?
I couldn't, I'd have to go back and tell you, but we actually had 10 million set aside. And so I agree with you. I'm a firm believer in saving money, putting it away, and, not expecting the taxpayers to cover the whole thing, that I really feel like we should plan for it, start saving for it, and look at different funding opportunities that might come along that could help support it. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. So I think with that being said, we're up here debating this issue a little bit, so thanks, Paul. And this will be on the October 16th business meeting for final approval. So just want to thank you all very much for coming. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just received a note that the total project cost is 2.5 million, but there's, I think we invested 200,000 last year. Is that correct, what you showed me? Yeah.
Well, this is phase one.
Right.
Right, but the total project cost is 2.5 million.
Well, see, thank you, Patrick, for that. I appreciate that. And my point is that we've thrown out 5 different numbers already. So here I am asking for clarification and got that it's going to be 2 million and now it's 2.5. I'm not being critical. I'm just saying is that Gary's right. His first reaction was we need to be better prepared. These are questions we're going to ask from here on out because of our financial condition, and that's across, I don't care what department it is, it's across the board. We're going to have to be really frugal and complete. I want to make sure that our staff reports and presentations and requests are complete. And I'll leave it there. Not a criticism towards anyone in this room, but we just got to get it together.
Yeah, and I do want to follow up on this. So a shout out to you, Patrick. I just want to say that I've been following a lot of the stuff that you've been doing, implementing some things, working with finance to try and make sure that we're all working together collaboratively. I know it doesn't happen overnight. I think it's unique that you worked in finance, so you understand kind of what Elizabeth Comfort needs, and I just honestly happy to see that we're working together to try and address this. So. So with that, thank you all very much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Next, State Senate District 26 vacancy appointment, update and timeline. Tonya Holowetsky, Director of Public and Government Affairs, will present, and there was a memo in your packet. Go ahead, Tonya. And Trent Wilson, Government Affairs Manager. Please tell me in advance who's coming to the table. Thank you. Go ahead, Tonya.
Good morning, Commissioners. We are here to request that the board review PGA's process for hosting the state-required meeting to appoint a new member to Senate District 26. As you know, Senator Daniel Bonham of Oregon Senate District 26 filed his vacancy with the Oregon Secretary of State effective October 5th. And that initiates the 30-day window for us to replace that seat. The vacancy must be filled no later than November 5th of this year. Chair Roberts has been selected by the Secretary of State to chair the appointment meeting, and that meeting will include the other counties that are within this district, which include Hood River, Multnomah, and Wasco. So the Republican Party, or the precinct committee persons of the Republican Party, will select the nominees for consideration by the county. There will be no less than 3 and no more than 5 candidates. And this decision must be made no later than October 27th. So with all that in mind, we are proposing the following course of action. PGA will coordinate with you and county administration and the other counties to determine an acceptable meeting date to accommodate all the participating counties. We will support the BCC team in the development of a script and coordinate between the counties on preferred questions and question format for interviewing the selected candidates. And finally, we recommend the meeting be a virtual meeting to accommodate schedules and to mitigate any travel issues across such a wide-reaching district. So that is a process that we are recommending, and we're asking for your both review, and we recommend that we move forward with this process that I outlined just now.
Right, colleagues, any questions?
No, we got to do it. We don't have a choice. Be nice if there was a map with all the redistricting that's happened over the last few years. I think we ought to be very public and transparent, make sure that there's a map so people who may be interested know that where they live, and that's so hard to do for most people. So having a map would be ideal.
Makes sense.
The other part that I think is also kind of important is how it's split up in percentages, which can be complicated, right?
Yeah.
And I think making sure we're all kind of clear about that, and Tran, I don't know if you want to talk about that now, but that's one of the things that, to me, can get kind of complicated, is how it's all weighted.
That's correct. Your votes are weighted in this process. Every commissioner has a certain weight based on how many votes are within the county, based on how many votes are within the district that Commissioner Savas was trying to describe there in the map. So we will work with county council and the county admin so that is a clear and simple process to see. We've done something like this in the past where we have like an Excel sheet where if somebody votes, you can kind of see the numbers tally up for a total. So we'll figure something like that out that helps everybody in that process, because it can be complicated. You're correct, especially with 4 counties.
Right. All right. Well, if there's no questions, we'll just go ahead and move forward with the plan as proposed. And thank you both for coming today. Gary?
Thank you. Next is Metropolitan Exposition Recreation Commission appointment. The Metropolitan Exposition Recreation Commission is a committee run by Metro Regional Government. It is to provide oversight of 3 of Metro's visitor venues, the Oregon Convention Center, the Portland Expo Center, and Portland 5 Center for the Arts. This committee has 1 representative from each of the 3 counties in the metro boundary. The Clackamas County's current representative is David Pendleton, who you appointed, I think, a year or 2 ago. David was the chair of the county's Tourism Development Council at the time. He has since gone off the Tourism Development Council, but he's a small business owner in Clackamas County. It is time for a reappointment of this position. David, it's always been difficult to fill this position, by the way. David has agreed to stay on to the position, but I want to ask you today, would you like to reappoint David to the Metropolitan Exposition Recreation Commission, or would you like to do an open recruitment and see who applies?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd be happy to reappoint David to this position. He's done a great job, and I don't know him really well, but I know him well enough to know he's perfectly competent and will do a great job for Clackamas County.
Any other thoughts?
Is that a motion?
So I would seek your, and thank you, Andrew clarified, it's Metro's decision, but you make a recommendation to Metro, and they always accept your recommendation. So I would ask for a motion to recommend David Pendleton to be Clackamas's rep on the MERC.
Okay, I move to support the nomination for the position of David Pendleton to this board.
I second that.
Commissioner Savas has moved to recommend David Pendleton for Clackamas County representative to the MERC. It's been seconded by Commissioner Helm. Any further discussion? All right, clerk, would you do us a favor and call the poll?
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Gary, would you please introduce the next agenda item?
Yes, thank you.
for us?
Next is potential county budget development code amendment. I will lead this one. Commissioners, as you will recall, In May 2025, this year, at the Budget Committee meetings, the Budget Committee, of which all 5 county commissioners are a member of, made several motions regarding budget development going forward at Clackamas County. 3 in particular were to require a 30-year financial forecast, next, to hire an external vendor to audit the assumptions of that 30-year financial forecast, and third, to require that the board pre-authorize any budget variations related to the general fund before it even comes to you in a potential supplemental budget. In July 2025, I and staff brought forward to you the particular question of the 30-year financial forecast, adding that to the county code. After a spirited debate, the board did not agree to put the 30-year financial forecast requirement in the county code. Instead, you directed staff to create a budget policy related to the 30-year financial forecast. After some deep thinking on my end, I am bringing this back to you for your reconsideration, and I am requesting that you consider adding a section to the county code that talks about all of the county budget development policies and put it in one place in the county code. And my staff and I have actually drafted what that would look like in Attachment A. But it would include requiring a 30-year financial forecast that is audited by an external vendor to test the assumptions of the 30-year forecast. It would add the language I just shared about any general fund variance that is not budgeted will come to the board first for a discussion before any movement is made. It will add what already exists in county budget policy, define the terms balanced budget, structurally sound budget, and sustainable budget, and require that I, as your administrator, propose a budget that meets all 3 definitions, and that the county adopts a budget that meets all 3 conditions. That exists already in policy. I'm proposing let's put it all together in county code. I know you had a spirited debate earlier, but I do think this will be very helpful and hold accountable your staff and the board that you really are financially careful for the next, at least forever ongoing, of how you maintain the budget. So I am proposing this for your consideration. If you agree, the next steps would be to hold 2 public hearings, or if you have edits to the proposed ordinance or any feedback at all, I welcome it at this point. Thank you. Back to you.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, Chair, I am quite supportive of this, actually, and I do appreciate the willingness and the idea of trying to bring it all into one place. So, if there are any other things that are either necessary or appropriate, I heard there's some other ideas out there that I would be open into. So they were not mine in the sense of having them included in this, but I would be open to them because I'm obviously a big fan of things like reserves and the policies. But having it all in one place and codified, I truly support. So thank you for doing this, Gary.
Commissioner Helm.
I agree with Commissioner Savas, and especially in light of our budget shortfalls and challenges we're going to have, not that we just have this year, but I think that we're going to have going forward. I especially appreciate 2.16.020, the appropriations limits, and about departments notifying us not at the 11th hour, which is what we found out during the budget process this year. And I think that would give us a little more room to breathe when things come up that might not be part of somebody's overall plan. So I also support this. And I think it'll make your job easier. Gary?
Yeah, just to kind of follow up on my colleagues up here, I also think it's a good idea. I think that I want to make sure that we get it absolutely right the first time, and some ideas and comments that I would like to see is really, I'm all about not trying to recreate the wheel, and really taking a look at what other best practices already exist out there, what that language is. I mean, I would like to see some of the metro counties' language on this area. What have they done? And I also think what's also important is perhaps some, and maybe I missed it, Gary, but really some language in here about supplemental budgets and how that would be applied. I know that there are reasons for supplemental budgets, but my goal is, Gary, I've had lots of conversations, is to allocate budgets to last the entire year. If unexpected emergencies come up, I understand that, but I think that's a good way to have people live within their means when they know from day one, hey, this is my budget. So I do support it. I just would like to just do maybe perhaps a little more work on it, and make sure that we're doing it once and final. And Gary?
Yes, and what I would like to add that I missed on my own proposal to you is to add the requirement of the contingency and reserves percentages. That does exist in policy, but should also be in here. The 5% of general fund is in contingency, 10% of general fund in reserves, and I'd like to codify that too.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, appreciate those thoughts, Chair. Thanks, Gary, for the addition and clarifying that we would be adding the reserves and contingency policies into this, so I'm good with that. I don't want to have much delay knowing that our budget cycle's coming up, so I think that I'm not too worried about coming back and revising it. We'll never get it right. I think we're always learning. And frankly, I think that we have Clackamas County's kind of led the charge. I won't say charge, but we have led the way in fiscal responsibility with regards to, and compared to our other counties, which have public known issues of being in the red. So I'm not sure I'd want to complicate it right now, but I don't have a full understanding, and maybe that's a conversation or a work session, Chair. And I would like to separate that supplemental budget conversation from this, because it's not anyone's fault. For example, if a project is slated to be completed or paid for in June, and there's a delay in the project, and it goes into July, which is the next fiscal year, that should be an impediment, right? And trying to draw some strict lines about a supplemental budget when all it is just really a legal requirement by the state to subtract that from one budget year and add it to another budget year simply because of a timing issue. There's no ill intent, but trying to have a hard line on something like this. I've been doing public budgets for 27 years, and I will tell you, I don't see how we could ever codify that. And I think it would delay that. But I am definitely open, Chair, if you want to have a greater discussion on elements of a supplemental budget or certain parameters for unforeseen things that are additive to either the revenue stream or additive to the cost stream of things, if that makes sense, versus timing.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about those types of situations. Really, I'm really talking about under the Department of Revenue, their language under supplemental budgets to make sure that we're on those guidelines, because it basically is very clear in there that if your budgeting should be clear that that's sustainable for the entire year. You don't go into that budget knowing that up front that I'm not going to make it. So that's part of the clarity I really want to make sure that we're on, instead of having to come back and say, hey, here's what you get right now, come back later in the year, knowing that it's unfortunately not adequate. So I just want to make sure there's clarity on that issue, and make sure that, again, that I'm not talking about the example of, hey, we didn't spend it last year and it's a rollover and that's going into the next year. Those aren't the situations that I'm referring to. But again, I think I would not expect it to take a tremendous amount of time to just reach out, because there might be additional things we want to add in here that other counties have thought of. Even though some of these counties have some financial issues, that doesn't necessarily mean that their policies aren't adequate. And really looking at, again, I just want to make sure we're taking the time to look at really some of the best practices. We might find something in there, we might not. And just wanting to direct staff to take a little bit of time to look at that, come back and say, look, we're ahead of the game on this issue and we're good to go. Or, hey, you know what, they thought about this. This is how they have supplemental budgets, or they have this, and we want to add that to it as a part of the code is all.
I don't think it'll take that long to do that. When did you propose to have this on for a hearing, Gary?
I think staff can get all this done by the end of this calendar year.
Yeah, so that gives us plenty of time to do that homework, and so I would just support staff moving forward and that timeline, and give our staff the opportunity as an additive to this to just look at other models as you suggested. There's no harm in that, but I'd like to proceed with this. Do you need a motion, Gary, for this?
Yeah. he's
Yeah, it's
gotta-
option
he's gotta-
one as well.
Yeah.
I move we direct staff to schedule the first required public hearing for approval of the code amendment with the items we discussed today: contingencies, reserves,
Great,
supplemental budgets, et cetera.
okay. I second that.
Right. Commissioner Helm has moved to direct staff to schedule the first required public hearing for approval of the code amendment outlined as discussed in reference to contingency reserves, and it's been seconded by Commissioner Savas. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. Clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, colleagues. And Gary, what is next?
Thank you. Next, your review of your board business meeting agenda for this Thursday, October 9th, 2025. You'll have public communication, a presentation recognizing a single county department, the Sheriff's Office, that received a National Association of Counties Award earlier this year, and actually a very small consent agenda. And that is it. If you have any questions on any of these items, would you please let me know before Thursday so I may answer them or have the appropriate staff in the room for you. Final item today is Commissioner Communications.
All right, thank you, Gary. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, been busy on a number of things, but I'll just maybe talk a little bit about our meeting we had yesterday with regard to libraries. And there's a task force that has been learning and gathering information. It's made up of library directors in a representative fashion, as well as city managers and mayors and committee members, advisory committee members. And yesterday we had our somewhat of a, not a final meeting, but the task put to hand, it was completed, and there's a recommendation coming forward on how to take the next steps. And so I appreciate both Gary and Tony Marinick in their role, and also Shelley Perini doing a great job helping that along. And just want to say that, in light of everything going on with government, getting back in the fiscal aspect, part of the drivers for this work has been just the financial constraints. Again, costs are outpacing revenues. And it's similar to those people who come and tell us, myself included sometimes, that we're on a fixed income. We know what our income is, and it doesn't really vary a whole lot. So on the tax base, in this case, for libraries or parks or whatever it may be, we're on a fixed income. And so when cost or inflation is outpacing it so radically, it's putting really those services in peril in the future. So any steps we can take proactively with our partner cities and community is a good thing, and recognizing the challenges ahead. So I just want to, number one, just publicly thank everyone for their role, including the members of the committee, obviously. And I have been in communication with some of the other stakeholders in this that don't have a seat at the table, but are indeed either counselors or mayors or public, just getting all the different viewpoints in there. It's so hard to have representative advisory committees. For example, I'll just use the mayors friendly. We have a member who's a rural mayor. We have a member who is a urban mayor, and they have to reach out to their cohorts, their fellow urban mayors and their fellow rural, and that's hard to do. And how the questions are framed, or how the story is told and framed, and the time constraints upon us all because a lot of these people are volunteers, especially elected officials in the cities, and they have day jobs. So, we do the best we can, and we will continue to educate folks and learn as to their challenges. So with that said, I continue to work hard on a number of things, including parks, transportation issues. Last night was the Region 1 Act. We had a great presentation from ODOT on the ADA access. If you've seen construction going on all the corners, that is a result of a lawsuit filed by the American Disabilities folks. And that's not just Oregon that was subject to that lawsuit, other states are. And it applies to counties and cities and the state of Oregon as it's, with ODOT facilities. So it's a lot of money, it's a lot of effort, but in the end, it's providing safe access for those that are disabled. The second presentation last evening was on microtransit shuttles and the little scooters you see and all the things that connect people to some of the more established fixed route services offered by whether it's TriMet or SMART or other transit agencies. So Tiger did a lot of work, and Washington County members did a lot of work on this. So great presentation, and a little bit of discussion and update on what the legislative result was with regard to the transportation package. But again, we're all awaiting to see if there's a referral. And so that we'll know more at the end of the year, I guess, as to whether or not that happens. That said, Chair, I yield back.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Hill?
Well, I took the weekend off to go celebrate my birthday with my adult children. And for those of you with grown kids, you know how hard it is to get them in the room at the same time. So I had to take advantage of that and have my family all together for the weekend. So I did not do work. I did a little bit of work online and took care of emails. But other than that, I have a big event this week. Friday is the gala for the Caring Place at the Abernethy Center. It is sold out, which is awesome. But for those of you who don't know, I started serving on that committee, the cabinet for the homeless solutions of Clackamas Coalition of Clackamas County. Prior to my board appointment, I still continue to serve as the gala chair. So I've been doing that as well this whole time. So, and trying to do my very best while I'm doing this. But it'll be nice to put on this event and actually have it over. So, because it'll be one big thing off my plate. But I'm really looking forward to it. And it's a very exciting opportunity to see this building take place.
Well, thank you for your leadership on that. It's very important work. So just a couple quick notes. Gary and I are actually meeting with Clackamas CSD, all the superintendents, really talk about what's going on in the county and also hearing how schools are doing and how we can kind of work together on that. Also have a meeting with the Milwaukee Rotary. Actually, that's today. And I just also had a meeting last night with Gina Furman-Nickel, the director of AOC, and also kind of hearing about state issues facing counties, some upcoming training, and just a lot of compliments about the hard work they do to help support all the counties in the state. So, and she also talked about their support of Martha and her run for the NACO position, and which was very supportive. And lastly, and I want Gary to confirm that I don't have the date wrong, but I want to make sure that we're, again, getting the message out for the State of the County address, November 5th at Clackamas Community College.
Yes.
And great chance to hear the priorities for the county, question and answers for people who want to attend. So again, that's November 5th at wonderful Clackamas Community College, and hope folks can make it. So that's all I have, and I'll turn to Gary. Did you have anything else?
Nothing further. Thank you, Chair.
All right. With that being said, we'll go ahead and conclude today's meeting, and thank you very much. Well, now, good afternoon and welcome back to our policy session on October 7th, 2025. And I'll start out with Gary Schmidt. So would you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Commissioners West and Schrader are out of the office today. Roll call. Commissioner Helm.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Chair Roberts.
Here. Thank you, Gary. And would you please introduce the first item we have?
Yes, the first policy session today is coordinated housing access and the by name list.
Oh,
The team from Health, Housing, and Human Services will present. Mary Rumbaugh, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services, and Shannon Callahan, the Division Director of the Housing and Community Development Department. Division, go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Chair Roberts and Commissioners. Thanks for having us today, and I was pleased to have your response there, Chair, because you've been asking for this policy session. So we're here today to talk about the Coordinated Housing Access, or CHA, as it's known, which is our coordinated entry system. Coordinated entry is actually required by HUD to ensure fair access to housing and homeless services. We want to get to the next slide. CHA is often referred to as the front door through which people in housing crisis can access a range of services right-sized to fit their level of need. For us, about half of our CHA callers are actually seeking rental assistance. Many are literally homeless and/or fleeing domestic violence. And when they call, they're added to our county's by name list. And that list is a list of every individual experiencing homelessness in our county. And therefore, it's updated in real time. So it's some of our better data that we have available. So I'll turn it over to Shannon Callahan to continue the presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., folks in Clackamas County can call and get assistance from our trained CHA staff. The Coordinated Housing Access line can be reached by calling 503-655-8575. Our CHA team starts each call by gathering basic information in a trauma-informed way so they can understand how best they can help. Questions asked may include, how long have you been experiencing homelessness? What do you need to resolve your housing crisis? Do you have a disabling condition? Our CHA team partners with service providers to ensure connections to resources are up to date, appropriate, and effective. And we assure a warm handoff. When referrals to available programs are made, service providers call participants directly. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of some of the common calls that CHA receives, as Mary mentioned, they include first and foremost rent assistance, which encompasses about half of all calls. The CHA staff screen these requests for eligibility, assessing folks' situation, income, and any current agency involvement. Many callers are literally homeless or fleeing domestic violence. For these callers, our CHA team staff conducts an assessment, confirms Clackamas County residency, and adds them to our by name list. High vulnerability callers are prioritized for permanent housing openings. Out-of-county callers are referred to the appropriate coordinated access system for their locality. So since we opened our CHA hotline in 2020, we have had year-over-year growth, starting at just about 3,000 calls a year to nearly 24,000 calls last year. 40% of those calls were repeat callers. While our call volume has sharply increased, to address this, we've made efforts to streamline our processes to be sure that we can provide the appropriate level of resources and care, and we have added additional staffing to our CHA hotline. So next, we want to talk with you a little bit about what we do in the screening process and how we match folks to services. So after talking with the callers, our team matches people to the appropriate services or program for their situation, whether they need prevention, short-term support, or long-term support. Prioritization is based on urgency and vulnerability, with an override process for true emergencies. Vulnerability looks at the length of time homeless, an individual's health, physical, mental, and disability, age,
active domestic violence situations, as well as institutional and hospitalization history. In talking with the CHA team supervisor, Melissa Baker, who's joining us in the audience this afternoon, I asked what was the service that the CHA team finds the most barriers and the most needed program. And what I heard from Melissa is shelter. Shelter is one of the things that they have the hardest time accessing just because of the system capacity. Next, would like to talk with you a little bit about our by name list. When folks call the CHA hotline and we find that they are literally homeless or in an active domestic violence situation, we do a detailed assessment. And that assessment will then determine who is placed on our by name list. By name list meaning those we know in our community by name that are experiencing homelessness. Last fiscal year, we completed 1,192 assessments, and there are currently 1,188 people on our by name list. 94% of those on our list have had contact from at least one service provider. This is a very good statistic, knowing that those we know that are homeless are actively had conversations with a service provider in our community. We've also included handouts in the packet today that go a little bit deeper into the by name list as well as our CHA system, but for some kind of high-level figures. We have determined that 557 people on our by name list are chronically homeless, 260 are families, and the average length of people's homelessness is 910 days for those who are non-veterans. Veterans have a typically shorter length of homelessness due primarily to a number of specific veterans homeless programs that exist, funded largely by the federal government. Before we conclude and answer any questions you might have, I did want to talk a little bit about some of the additional promising practices and innovation that the CHA Access Line has introduced to our system. The CHA Partnership Network is really truly spans across the entire county in collaborations with other public governments, nonprofits, faith-based organizations. And we literally receive daily updates on the availability of services and resources from across our network. Just last fiscal year, the CHA team piloted the Resource Navigation Program to work with directly with individuals on the by name list, trying to divert folks in chronic homelessness out of a resource-heavy laden program and offer other additional services. Since launching last year, 107 households have been helped with the Resource Navigation Network with a 61% success rate of moving them into housing, which is higher than what the national average for resource navigation programs are. An example of how this program would work in action is the story of two Clackamas residents, Margot and Carl. Margot, these names have been changed. These are not the individuals' real names. Margot was an 81-year-old who found herself homeless and living in her car. Her partner and best friend, Carl, was 70 years old and facing the same issues. By connecting with a resource navigator, our team here at Clackamas County, actually within the Social Services Department, was able to help them apply for apartments, deal with old criminal charges that Carl had, deal with the lack of documents that Margot had to be able to rent an apartment, because they did have some resources. By helping them with their birth certificate, go through the appeals process at a housing complex, our navigator stayed with them throughout the entire process, and they are now successfully housed through the Resource Navigation Project. And they are one of just 107 examples in just a few short months since we've opened that program. Another innovative practice that CHA utilizes is what's called the CHA Core Team, where people with lived experience in homelessness and our frontline staff of community partners come together to guide the continuous improvement process at CHA. And then finally, I just wanted to note that our CHA team is nationally recognized for its innovation, creativity, and effectiveness. CHA was the recipient in 2024 of the Achievement Award from the National Association of Counties. So that's a very high-level overview of the program and a little bit of the work that we do. We're happy to go deeper into any questions you might have.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon, and thank you for the presentation. So I have used the number, shared it with other people, and had varying responses back. And the people I referred to are trying to help another, so it wasn't direct contact. It was indirect. Someone either knew someone, or they were living in their front yard or nearby, or so on, so they were concerned. So just on the math part, I'm curious. So 24,000 calls a day, right?
A year.
A year, yeah. 24,000, that's about 600 something per, or 65 per day? 65 per day, I did the math. So 65 calls per day, I believe, roughly. And the 1,188 that are on the call name list, right? That's not an annual number, that's just what it's accrued to?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes, that is everyone who has ever called the Coordinated Housing Access System that we know is actually literally homeless.
Okay. So, and then knowing that some of these calls are probably repeat calls, right?
Yes,
So of that,
40%.
but roughly, if I just take that 1,192, roughly, the remaining, or the calls coming in, and look at that from the 24,000, that's about 95% of the calls are not really, can you share what that other 95% looks like? And I imagine, again, the repeat calls bring that number down, but what are the calls, do you do a breakdown of those calls?
We do a data breakdown of the CHA calls within various categories. As Mary indicated at the beginning, the number one need is rent assistance. So that could be rent assistance for rent that's coming due, or that could be back rent. Traditionally, that has been filled with eviction prevention resources. The largest portion of funds we have for eviction prevention have come from the state. The state recently, in their last budget, I think it was over a 75% cut to eviction prevention. So, for instance, that's one of the big issues that we are asking to focus on in the next legislative session is working on the eviction prevention funds. Some of the call, it's really about housing or other resources. I'm going to turn to my phone a friend, which is Melissa Baker, the CHA supervisor. And Melissa, is there anything you would want to add to that on other calls besides rent assistance?
Come up for.
Thank you. Melissa Baker, our supervisor of the CHA team.
It is correct, about half to 60% of the calls are people calling in for rent assistance. The majority of folks that call in for rent assistance don't receive rent assistance, and so, of course, they're going to be calling back, sometimes weekly, some of them daily. So that's a lot of the calls. And then folks that are literally homeless, in order for them to remain active on that by name list, so that if there is a program they can be placed into, they have to check in somehow so that we know that they're still out there. And so those are also calls that are received in that percentage.
Okay.
And I think that's all I have to add.
So I guess my question is, a little bit drilling down a little bit, it sounds like you're the person to ask, are all those calls,
You don't get to go.
are all those calls, all logged? And so they're all recorded, and you can analyze, break that all down. So let's just say that someone calls, I have an example, a real example. Someone calls and on behalf of someone, and that person's currently not ready to do much of anything, right? They need a lot of help trying to navigate, whether it is they are suffering from domestic violence, or whether they are just kind of withdrawn and they don't want to engage anyone. Do they have people like that? Do they have a case manager assigned to them out of the gate?
We can, so if someone else is calling on behalf of someone, it would be very unlikely that we would assign a case manager to that. We could ask, depending on the situation, that an outreach worker, we do pay and support outreach workers in our community. I think that would usually be the first line of contact. Case management is usually when someone is actively engaging in the system. But outreach would usually be appropriate for that, depending on what information our CHA team is actually getting and receiving about the person, and if we can get an outreach team to the person that's having the struggles.
Okay, so if they did send someone out to visit this person, in this case, they did ultimately, how frequent, I mean, I know every case is different, but is there a frequency for touching back with them as they progress? As this person, I know of a situation where it's going to take a lot of tender, loving care to help this person along.
So the outreach workers will have different protocols based on what they're experiencing. Sometimes it's hard to find the person again if they're not in the same place. And it often takes, I shouldn't say often, it takes multiple connections to individuals to even build a level of trust. And obviously, we also have the community paramedic program that if someone is experiencing a health crisis in the community paramedic is also working on building that level of trust. And I would hate to quote a stat that I don't know off the top of my head, but I think it's close to a dozen times, many times of outreach before that connection can be made. And then, of course, depending on what the person's circumstances are, what the program that may be available or open to them at that time.
Okay. I think this is the last question. That is that that person is identified, and yet probably might be a year or two from ever being ready to go into even a shelter, okay? Maybe sooner if we're lucky, okay? Because it's gone on for several months. It'll be a year here pretty soon for this one particular individual. Is this actually the right number? Because if they're not really ready for housing and they really need, whether it's nutrition or whether they need some other treatment or assistance or guidance, is this the right number for people that are not really ready for housing?
I still think this is the very good best number to contact. If there are particular challenges, Commissioner Savas, I'd love to talk to you offline about this particular case you're thinking of and see if we can troubleshoot with you. But what I will say is the CHA team has some very experts on their team at addressing and kind of working through these challenges. And CHA does remain, kind of our front door access. But I don't know that the individual you're talking about and what I would want to go particularly and look at what's been happening if we can find that out and figure out if repeated calls to CHA is actually the most appropriate thing or if there's actually a connection already made in the community. So.
And I do. I want to say thank you. I really appreciate the work. You've been all passionate about it. Vahid's been very passionate about it, and he's been in the past has clearly educated me quite a bit. So as I'm building on this, thank you for all the good work. So, and the answers today. Thank you.
Just a couple questions. First of all, it's fantastic information. Thank you very much for all your hard work on this. And I know I didn't see it in here, but I was hoping maybe you could just talk about the numbers as compared to the point in time count. And obviously, it seems like your list is much more detailed.
Well, and I think, Commissioner, thank you for that question, because this is something that we talked about earlier with you as we were perfecting our by name list process. As a rough comparison, the point in time count this year identified 558 homeless individuals. And right now, we know on our list is basically double that. And I think that this does reflect, some of the challenges that we've discussed with you about finding everybody on that one particular night. Certain folks are better about, frankly, hiding. Clackamas is a very large county. And so people may engage with us through the CHA hotline that we cannot find on one particular night. And I think especially, when it comes to families, I think we often undercount in families because they're not as often living under a bridge. They may be living in an RV. They may be living in a car. They may even be couch surfing for brief moments in time where they can get that, but then are going back into literal homeless. So this is why we think the by name list is a much better count than the point in time count.
Great, thank you. Just a couple other questions. And I think this is actually helpful because HUD's definition of chronically homelessness individual is one that's been qualifying disabilities, lives in a place or not meant for human habitation or an emergency shelter, and has been homeless for at least 12 months or on at least 4 separate occasions in the last 3 years, totaling 12 months or more. So when I kind of look at that as a definition under HUD for homelessness, and then I look at your data on the youth and chronically homeless, and so that's the 18 to 24 category age bracket, I guess. And so it says chronically and non-chronically homeless, 333 days. I guess could you talk about that population a little more? You see where I'm looking at on
Yeah,
your
I do.
chart?
You're looking at the handout
Yes, I'm just
sheet.
trying to understand it, so.
Yeah, so so you're seeing two different numbers, those that are unsheltered and those that are chronic homeless. So we have 191 individuals in the 18 to 24-year age range that are unsheltered, and 149 that are chronically homeless. The length of both of those categories for homelessness is 333 days. So many of these youth have spent a significant amount of their time homeless. I do not have the facts on every single one of these, but we know system-wide, many of these youth come out of the foster care system and either most likely never found their permanent family. And nationally, we see, I think it's approximately 40% of the homeless youth are former foster children.
So, can you geographically describe kind of what areas of the county, or is there one area of the county that seems a higher population of that than others?
I would have to do a little bit deeper of a dive on that for you to bring you back that information. Sometimes we will know somewhere is staying, but I will also say this is a highly mobile population that are often moving, frankly, to avoid causing problems or involvement with law enforcement or just, bothering the neighboring community. But I could see what data we can pull from our by name list to get you a better sense of that.
Okay, thanks. And the very last question, so as you know, we've had lots of conversations about seniors and how that's a population, and I might be missing it, but I've looked in here, I don't see it broken on this handout. Am I missing it somewhere on here about seniors? I see veterans, non-veterans, youth, and.
No, that's an oversight on our part. I will make sure that we update this handout for you and
Okay,
update it
that'd be
with the
just
senior
great.
numbers.
Kinda
Yeah,
great.
thank you.
Population, so fantastic. I mean, thank you very much for all your guys' hard work. The PowerPoint's amazing. I'll carry it with me everywhere, so I don't misquote myself. So with that being said, I think that's it, unless anybody else has any other questions. Thank you both for coming today.
Thank you.
All right, so this session is information only. I again want to thank staff for keeping us informed on this important matter, and we'll move on. So I'll now recess as the Board of County Commissioners, convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board of Directors. Gary, you want to introduce our next session.
Yes, thank you, Chair. You're now meeting as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board. The first policy session is Final System Plan Review for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Presenting is Kiaselli, the Director of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, and Aaron Riome, who's the Planning Division Director for the district. Go ahead, please.
Hi.
Thank you, Gary. Good afternoon, Chair Roberts and directors. I'm pleased to be here today with Aaron Riome, NCPRD Planning and Development Division Director, to present NCPRD's final 2025 system plan. Aaron has led this transformational project since its inception in late 2023 when the board approved the consulting contract. Today is a significant step forward for NCPRD as NCPRD's current Park and Recreation Master Plan was approved in 2004. The plan was updated in 2015, but with the subsequent boundary changes, the plan was never approved. Typically, these plans are refreshed every 5 years, so given time and many changes that have occurred since 2004, a new plan is needed to guide decision-making and investment that accurately reflects the needs and wants of the community based on both their input as well as data that is current. Also, this plan is a critical tool for strategic decision-making that is responsive to the needs and wants of the community, regardless of available resources. Given NCPRD's current resource constraints, this plan will help ensure the most prudent use of limited resources to address community wants and needs. And when more resources become available, this plan will guide thoughtful community investments, again, in alignment with district wants and needs. As you know, it's difficult to get everyone to agree on all aspects of a comprehensive district-wide plan when needs and wants exceed available resources. However, I'm very pleased to report that last month, the majority of the NCPRD District Advisory Committee passed a motion in support of board approval of this plan. I will now pass the presentation to Aaron Riome for a presentation on the process and the plan recommendations, and then we're happy to answer any questions and receive your feedback.
Thank you, Director Sully, and thank you, Chair Roberts and directors for having us here this afternoon. I am so excited to be here to present to you on this 2025 system plan for NCPRD. As Director Sully mentioned, this has been a long time in the making, and it will provide some really critical strategic guidance for the district moving forward. Before I get into the plan recommendations that are summarized in the handout that all of you have, really the fun stuff in the plan, I want to talk through the community engagement work and some of the data assessment that was done that really formed the backbone of this plan and those recommendations. Through the course of this project, NCPRD reached well over 3,000 residents across the district through our community engagement process. This was using a variety of different methods, but all organized around an overarching principle of meeting people where they are as often as we could. So in order to do that, in addition to a series of focus groups, we also tabled at over 20 different community events last summer. Went out and met with and gave presentations to over 20 different community groups. And we also organized a large survey effort last summer in which over 2,500 residents participated.
Wow.
We also just recently completed a public comment period for our draft plan as well. And as I think you all are aware, NCPRD has a pretty tiny staff. So in order to accomplish all of that engagement work, it was really critical that we partner with a few key groups to help us accomplish all of that work. So I just want to acknowledge, in particular, the District Advisory Committee and everything that they did to help make this project a success. We met with them 9 times through the course of this project. And in addition to that, had 2 series of one-on-one interviews with them. And then a number of the DAC members also went above and beyond and helped us with tabling efforts at community events. They also participated in site assessments at our different parks and facilities. and also helped us to promote that survey last summer, putting out yard signs in their own yards, hanging up flyers all over the district. So they really went the extra mile to help make that a success. We also partnered with the Clackamas County Youth Action Board, and they were really indispensable as well in helping us with tabling efforts, helping us to complete site assessments of our parks and facilities, and really bringing a youth perspective to the entire project. We also worked very closely with Clackamas County's community engagement liaisons, and they were fantastic at helping to connect us to different community-based organizations throughout the district and forge partnerships that really helped us to broaden our reach through the course of this project. So, with all of that engagement, what did we hear from residents? We heard that NCPRD's parks, facilities, and programs are really treasured resources to many community members. We also heard that in the future, residents would like to see more trails, better access to nature, more access to water, and more swimming and aquatics offerings. We also heard that they would like to see NCPRD prioritize maintenance of existing parks and facilities, park development at our undeveloped properties that the district owns, and also just increasing the overall number of neighborhood parks across the district was a priority. Another thing that we heard frequently through conversations with community members and the site assessments that were done with our DAC members and Youth Action Board members was that residents would really like to see a little bit more variety in what NCPRD offers, particularly at our parks. And I think one of our Youth Action Board members summarized it pretty well, that a lot of NCPRD's parks today kind of feel the same, and there's a lot more that they could offer in the future. So all of that engagement was extremely valuable. In addition to that, our consultant team did some really extensive data assessments about the district, starting with a benchmarking study to compare NCPRD with peer districts across the region and across the country. For example, NCPRD currently has 1.9 acres of parkland for every 1,000 residents in the district. Compare that against the national average for districts of our population size, and it's 10.2 acres of parkland for every 1,000 residents. So to frame that a little bit differently, NCPRD currently has 18% of the national average of parkland per 1,000 residents. So that's pretty striking. And I think we hear this often, and I'm guessing that you hear this often from residents of the district as well. Many residents in the district feel that their area of the district is underserved in terms of parks and open space offerings. So our consultant team looked at exactly that through the course of this system plan project. They took a look at which areas of our district have access to parks and which don't. And they did that by conducting a walkshed analysis. So looking at which areas of the district have walking access within a half mile or a 10-minute walk from residential areas. And what they found is that 47% of the district has access to parks and open space. But that also means that 53% does not. So another kind of striking figure. Because district resources are limited, we don't think that it's feasible, even within a 20-year plan horizon, to anticipate that 100% of district residents would have walking access to parks and open space. So we also asked that our consultant team take a look at which areas should be prioritized for investments in new park development and in increased services. And in order to do that, they took a look both at those gaps in the walkshed analysis, so which areas don't currently have walking access to parks, and also which areas of the district have high concentrations of residential population. So where are the most people living, and where would we be able to offer the greatest value with new investments? In addition to that, they also layered on an analysis of high community need, and they based this on the CDC's Environmental Justice Index, which has a whole slew of different indicators that it uses. I'm not going to list all of them, but a few are things like income, housing type, disability, populations over 65, populations under 17, et cetera. So they took that data on community needs, the data on high concentrations of where people are living, and that watershed analysis in order to determine which areas would be priority areas for new investment in the district. And that's highlighted on page 3 of the handouts, just in case you wanted to take a look at that. So all of the engagement and assessment work that was done for this project directly informed the recommendations that are contained in this plan. That includes a refined mission and vision. You'll find that on page 1 of the handout, as well as 4 key themes that you'll find summarized on page 2 of the handout. Those are to care for and invest in parks and recreation. That's drawn directly from some of that survey data. What we heard from the community is really important to maintain our existing parks and facilities while also looking to the future. Connecting to nature, again, we heard that that was a top priority for residents to be able to provide better access to nature. Play for all, so providing our services for all ages, abilities, and income levels. And then finally, to enrich our community. Through the community conversations that we had, we heard that NCPRD isn't just offering parks and recreation. NCPRD is really creating the spaces, the places, and the events that bring people together. So these 4 key themes will be our guideposts for our work moving forward, but they're also supported by a detailed set of goals, strategies, and action items that'll help translate this plan vision into implementation. And a key element of that implementation is the list of capital improvement projects. In the plan document, these are grouped into 3 different sequencing buckets. Short-term, which is 0 to 5 years, mid-term, which is 5 to 10 years, and long-term, which is 10 years and beyond. And as you might imagine, this is where a long-range plan starts to get really tangible for people. And this is where staff and the consultant team start to hear a lot of different and often conflicting opinions on where limited resources should be prioritized. For example, during our recent public comment period on our draft plan, we received a total of 216 comments. Of those 216 comments, 94 were about project sequencing and specifically requests to move Milwaukee Bay Park Phase 3 improvements from the midterm list of projects to the short-term list of projects. Fortunately, as we navigate these really challenging decisions and all of these competing perspectives, we have a consultant team working with us who help parks districts with this nationally. And what they did was develop a set of 5 core criteria to help inform how to determine project sequencing. And those 5 core criteria are capital repair and replacement needs. So where do we have aging infrastructure and equipment that is very much in need of improvement? Frequency of use and demand. This was drawn from that 2024 survey data to understand where are people going most often. Equitable geographic distribution of improvements and new park development across the district, so making sure that we are making improvements all across the district, not clustering them in one particular area. And then finally, staff assessments of facility and park conditions, as well as site observations that were made by community navigators. Based on these 5 core criteria, the consultant team's recommendation for short-term projects are replacing the aquatic park roof. That's underway today. It's actually scheduled to be complete by the end of the month. Improvements at North Clackamas and Risley parks. These are parks where we know that aging equipment and infrastructure needs to be replaced in the immediate term. Oak Bluff Trail improvements, similarly, we know that some improvements are needed there just for maintenance. And then finally, new development projects at the Jennings Lodge campus. This is a project that NCPRD has been working on for quite some time. In fact, the design is nearly complete. And development of a new park at the Justice property. This is one of those properties that NCPRD has owned for quite some time, and we heard very clearly through the community survey that that's a priority for residents to see some of those undeveloped properties be developed. And then finally, phase 1 of park development at the recently acquired 70th and Monroe site, which sits right within one of those priority areas for new investment that was identified through the system plan. I also wanted to note that the final plan language also makes clear that this sequencing is not set in stone. There are a lot of different conditions that could change that sequencing. Things like funding, staff capacity, partnerships, legal obligations, and ultimately when those projects are implemented and where is the decision of you all as NCPRD's Board of Directors. Before I conclude the presentation today, I also wanted to follow up on Director Selly's mention of the DAC meeting and the vote of support for approval of the final plan, and just provide a little bit more detail about that. At the September 10th meeting, 9 members of the DAC voted yes to support board approval of the final system plan. 1 member voted no, and 1 abstained. There was also public testimony from 1 member of the public who requested that Milwaukee Bay Park be moved from the midterm project list to the short-term project list. The DAC member who voted no that evening didn't provide comments that evening, but did follow up with written comments after the meeting and clarified their concern that they would really like to see ADA and accessibility improvements prioritized in this system plan document. So I wanted to touch on that briefly. This system plan document includes an action item that's listed in our midterm action steps, which is 5 to 10 years out, to do a district-wide accessibility audit of all of our parks and facilities. And the reason why that's in the midterm sequencing as opposed to the short term is because it's going to take quite a bit of funding and staff resources to be able to complete that work. But in the final system plan, we did also clarify and add language to note that our short-term projects that we'll be undertaking in 0 to 5 years will really have ADA and accessibility improvements as a focus. And I would note that the work that's currently underway at the Concord campus is an excellent example of this. And we all get to go celebrate that together on October 18th, which is very, very exciting. So at that historic elementary school building, we have created a new accessible lobby space on the ground floor. We've added a new elevator to take patrons from that accessible lobby up to where programming will be located. Bathrooms were retrofitted for ADA compliance, and the new playground there will be designed to be fully accessible, or is designed to be fully accessible, from the play surfacing to the play equipment that's installed there. So it really sets a new bar for accessibility and what accessible play can look like in the district. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for your time, Chair Roberts and directors, and welcome any questions that you might have about the system plan.
Commissioner Helm.
Thank you, Erin. That was very good presentation. You mentioned that you had over 3,000 people participate. Over what period of time was that?
Well, we started our project work in January 2024, and we just wrapped up our last comment period in June 2025. And I would say that the 3,000 people, that's a rough estimate, right? We talked to a lot of people when we were out tabling at events, and we didn't count every single one of them, but we know that with 2,500 people who participated in the survey, and the fact that we talked to a lot more, that it's probably well over 3,000 people.
And was that your initial outreach, was the tabling? Or was it through flyers or your initial engagement?
Yeah, great question. So our initial engagement started with a series of 8 focus groups that we held. And that really helped to shape the rest of our community engagement strategy, actually. Through those focus groups, we learned a lot about other community organizations that we should be contacting, people that we should be reaching out to, and how to talk to people about this project. Sometimes long-range planning can be difficult for people to engage with, so that was really kind of formational to have those focus group conversations early on.
Okay, very good. The number kind of blew my mind. I was at a meeting last week, Metro meeting, and they did a 3-county survey and got 180 responses, which was like nobody responded. So 3,000 is a pretty good number. I'll take it for a small district like that. So, okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Erin and Kia, for being here today, and thanks for all the great work. Last night was the Region 1 Act, and part of that presentation was ADA challenges for ODOT primarily, and a lot of advocates for that, and some people kind of sometimes critical. And I remember previous days prior to Kia coming on board where the Concord facility, I had specifically called out, this is not accessible. And even though you might have a sign on the door, an ADA sign, there's no way that anyone in a wheelchair or has a disability can enter that building. And yet it was one of our assets, and it was somewhat publicly open at sorts. So I am very pleased, number one, that we made all those changes. And you mentioned the elevator. I mean, that's not no small, inexpensive task. That's a big deal. So we did, and I want to just applaud everyone, we did the bare bones minimum to really make that building accessible for all and also usable for a number of things, HVAC, all those things. So, I'm really looking forward to the 18th. Getting back to the systems plan, reading the original master plan, which is really the only effective plan in place prior to us accepting this, right? We're on the precipice of saying yes to this. The way the language it called out for areas that are based on service levels was, served, underserved, and then severely underserved. And part of the areas that we're talking about today, even on the 18th to some degree, and especially in Jennings Lodge, we're in that severely underserved. So that was language that was actually used. And so I would, in my own mind, I'm hoping that we can make progress on some of those areas that were listed as such, and we are, right? I mean, if we can get this thing with Oregon City School District and the Jennings Lodge property underway, we did a lot with a lot of grants. And, I want to just, again, applaud your leadership, both of you, and staff that aren't here today, the fact that, the community was always told we don't have the money. And yet, we're really building Jennings Lodge, if that comes to fruition, and then fingers crossed we are, that's primarily funded with grants that have always been there, frankly. So why we didn't even try, to some degree, again, past administrations or past reasoning. But if we want to get the community on board for any kind of a funding challenge or support for funding or anything else, we've got to start showing effort, and I think we are beginning to show that today. So I want to just say that this is a big step in trying to turn around the understanding of those severely underserved areas that, they're not loved, they're not cared for, we're not doing anything about it. We need to change that narrative. And I think we got something to show the point. So looking forward to that day when we can at least strike the chord with the Jennings Lodge project and break ground. That will be, I think, the beginning of a change. And also under areas, my colleagues may not be aware, but the district initially was divided up in 5 sub-areas, and then that was forgotten and lost and dismantled, and now that's been reassembled. So now we have the 5 sub-areas. So you have this systems plan does identify, the needs in those areas, and want to make sure that we try, and I know you all are, try to make sure we get more coverage and access to facilities in those areas. So they're, again, at least can be in the reasonably served category, if you will, my own term. But thank you, and I'm excited to move this along.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just a couple quick comments. A big shout out to Aaron and Kia for this work and having the coordination to pull this all together. This is absolutely exactly what I would ever hope. It's making sure we're listening. And as I listen to the large public survey, which I think is significant for that geographic area, the goals, strategies, the action plan, the 5 core key factors that you look at really all make complete sense. So I can just tell there's been a lot of work that's gone into this. So really a big shout out. I want to know where people might go to look at this, because I think it's worth taking the time. So could you talk about where they might be able to find this online?
We do not have that posted online yet. This is the big preview, the big reveal. But with your approval, we can definitely update that on our website and have that publicly accessible to everyone.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. And I also wanted to kind of follow up on the ADA issues. And I think that I have a number of different friends with ADA issues, and it makes me more aware of ADA issues, even the simple ones. And I can give you one example. It was a senior that had vision impairment, and it was at a spot where there was a curb where there should be not a curb, and it should have been painted. And because of his vision, he couldn't see it. He tripped. He went down pretty hard, right? And so I am complete support of looking at those things, even if they're little things. I know elevators are big, but even some of those other things. And I took a trip to the coast some time ago, but one of the things I was so impressed with, I walked down to the beach, and they had this like rubber mat that people in wheelchairs could go out to be on the beach. And I think it's those kinds of things that are really so cool to make sure we're, meeting the needs of all our population. So I'm so glad that you guys are looking at that, and that's in your vision. So Commissioner Savas had a comment.
Yeah, just to let you know, I'm still reading, but the actual material from the assistance plan is at least about that thick of public comments and so forth. So when we hold this up, to let people know that when it's all posted in there's a lot of reading, and I encourage people to take it in bites. Can't do it all at once. I'm falling asleep sometimes trying to read all of that. But again, really excited to actually for final approval of this. But wanted to just let you know there's a lot more material than just what's here.
All right. So with no other questions or comments, directors, can I have a motion?
Yeah. Chair, I move we advance the 2025 final system plan to the next NCPRD quarterly board meeting for final approval.
Second.
All right. Director Savas has moved to advance the 2025 final system plan to the next North Clackamas Parks Recreational District quarterly board meeting for the final approval. It's been seconded by Director Helm. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, will you please call the poll?
Director Helm.
Aye.
Director Savas.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. A reminder that next North Clackamas Parks and Rec District Board of Directors meeting will be Wednesday, October 29th at 5 p.m. And with that, I will turn it over to Gary.
Yes, and a reminder, this has not been approved yet, so if you do post this online, put draft all over it, because it's not approved yet. Thank you. Next session, you're still meeting as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board. This is District Advisory Committee bylaw revisions. Kia and Aaron will present as well. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Chair Roberts and directors, I'm pleased to be here today to present revisions to the NCPRD District Advisory Committee bylaws. Erin is joining me for this discussion as well because she is also the staff liaison to the District Advisory Committee. In October of 2020, the board approved the DAC bylaws. The following year, in February of 2021, the board approved revised guidance for the recruitment and nomination of DAC members that was developed by a task force of community members. The DAC bylaw revisions before you today bring the DAC bylaws into alignment with the 2021 board-approved policy guidance for recruitment and nomination of committee members. Also, last month, the DAC unanimously voted in support of a motion to recommend these bylaw revisions. Today, the DAC has 12 members, made up of 2 members from each of the 5 sub-areas, as well as 1 District Community Center Advisory Board, which is currently just the Milwaukee Community Center Advisory Board, and a non-voting board liaison, which is Director Savas. Building this initial committee was a heavy lift, and in their recommendations, the task force outlined an initial approach to ensure a comprehensive and democratic process, but they had the foresight to acknowledge that this process would likely need to change over time, just based on the needs of DAC members in the community. So before you today are 2 major areas of revisions to the bylaws and 3 minor revisions. So the first major area of revisions pertain to the nomination and voting process in a few different ways. First, it renames the Committee of Sub-Area Volunteers that are leading this charge as the Nomination Committee, just to be really clear with the community. It notes process coordination and collaboration with the DAC chair and vice chair. It allows for just one meeting for nomination and voting of the sub-areas, not two, and allows that meeting to be virtual or hybrid. Keep in mind that we want to engage as many community members as possible. These are evening meetings when people have competing priorities between family and work and volunteer efforts. Lastly, the age of committee members has actually, is no longer required to be 18 years and older. So younger community members could apply if they're interested. The second major area of revisions pertains to the concept of sub-area alternates. This is both a response to the growing community interest in DAC participation and the practical reality that DAC members sometimes can't attend every meeting, or sometimes we've actually had a few instances recently where DAC members couldn't complete their terms for personal reasons. So specifically, the updated language allows for one alternate to be nominated for each sub-area, and board-approved alternates could participate as voting members if a DAC sub-area member is absent for that particular meeting, or if, again, they don't complete their term. There are also 3 minor revisions to the bylaws before you today. The first minor revision adds language to the bylaws referencing the voter-approved measure that was passed in 1990 that formed the district, funded the district, and notes that there was intended to be sub-area local control and representation. The second minor revision clarifies that if a DAC member serves more than half their term, that will be considered a full term served, and that community members may reapply for a term after a 2-year break instead of a 4-year break. We have some members that want to return sooner rather than later. The third and last minor revision clarifies that members can attend virtually if they'd like. I will note that most members attend in person, and that seems to create a better dialogue. But from time to time, individual members have reasons to participate virtually. The DAC is currently forming a subcommittee to look at bylaws, make sure that they are continuously improved, they maintain relevancy and responsiveness to the community. And so it is potentially envisioned that you could see me on an annual basis presenting just different types of tweaks to those bylaws, but not more frequently than annually. So this concludes my comments. I'm happy to take any questions or feedback.
Thoughts, commissioners, questions?
The only thing I will say, I'm prepared to move forward with this. I will let you know that there'll be probably at some point in time, I don't know when the committees are done working on it, but there'll also be another revision with regards to the community center. The new community center is not included in the bylaws, but the existing community center is. So how that, what the work it looks like, I don't know exactly, but I foresee this will be just one step of many. And I think this would be a good thing to get behind us. I know that Gary's been wanting to see this progress on this. So thank you, Gary, for seeing this through. There was a way back, a few years ago, there was somehow it didn't all materialize, and we all thought it did. So this is being corrected. So many thanks, Gary. Many thanks.
Sorry, go ahead.
I love how engaged that community is, that they want only a 2-year break so they can serve again. That just tells you how committed they are to their community. It's fantastic.
And Gary, you had a comment.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Yes, I do want to note that on February 21st, 2021, the Board of Directors of the district made explicitly clear how to nominate the sub-area members of the DAC. And I'm not sure why it took 4 years to actually get this in the bylaws, but it's finally here. Thank you to Kia and her staff. But I've told Kia, this is no surprise, these bylaws need to comply with the February 2021 policy. An advisory committee doesn't overturn the Board of Directors, and you've assured me it does. So thank you for that. And then I do want to call out to you, commissioners, or directors, I have a slight concern about not having an age limit of age 18, because ultimately the district is responsible for any liability issues with a minor, even though this is an advisory board. I totally understand young people have incredible contributions, not discounting that. I'm concerned about liability for the board, because you are liable, not the committee. However, I can't find proof that our other advisory boards have an age limit. So because that's not consistent, I guess we shouldn't penalize this particular advisory committee. But I do want to call it out. I have a little bit of concern about that. Thank you for hearing me.
Yeah, Commissioner Sal.
Yeah, Gary's brought this to my attention, and I'll just note that it was meant for the bylaws to be silent on this. And I think the way it's written, it's silent, but yet the applications for some of our other committees actually cited on the application. So we can pass this, I believe, and again, if it truly is silent, and if risk management and others guide us one way or another to make sure that the application for not just this committee, but all our committees meets our requirements, if you will, then I think that might be the place for that to be documented of sorts, right? So we'll need to update the DAC once we get that information.
Got it, yes.
All right. So with that being said, do I have a motion?
I move we advance the proposed DAC bylaws revisions to the next NCPRD quarterly board meeting for final approval.
Second.
All right. Director Helm has moved to advance the proposed DAC bylaw revisions to the next North Clackamas Parks Rec District quarterly board meeting for final approval. It's been seconded by Director Savas. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, will you please call the poll for us?
Director Savas.
Aye.
Director Helm.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, Mr. Chair.
Right, thank you both very much. And just another reminder, next North Clackamas Parks and Rec District Board of Directors meeting is on Wednesday, October 29th at 5. And with that being said, this will conclude our final policy session of the afternoon. So thank you all for joining us today and have a great afternoon.